Mailbag part 2, answering you guys' questions about the Pacers heading into next season. We talked some James Wiseman, some future moves, what Pacers seed would be in the West, and lots of other more funky and fun stuff, all on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Tuesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, round 2 of the mailbag, answering you guys' questions from Twitter, as we do in the first full week of August every off season. I'm trying to limit the mailbags every year now, but this is a good time for me to do it because I want to know what you guys want to hear about in this month and next month, because it's that time of the off season where the moves slow down, even though today is the Lowry Markkanen big day around the NBA. We'll talk about a lot of stuff today. James Wiseman, other young players, big trades in the future, and some other zany stuff. Like, what if the Pacers were in the opposite conference? What would that look like? And the first ever YouTube question. We did it. We made it happen. So let's just dive right in. If you're watching on YouTube, you see me looking at my phone. It's so I can actually read the questions. Our first one comes from Indiana Sports Talk at 5x6yn, who says in a three-parter, 1, do you think TJ, aka TJ McConnell, will get extended? My answer to that is no. My answer to that before the offseason really got going, I'll say like July 8th, was yeah, maybe. And the reason for that is I did not think Andrew Nembhard would get extended. There was reporting that Nembhard would, so maybe I should have been more invested in that being a possible reality. But I just didn't think that the offer the Pacers could make would be enough to keep Andrew Nembhard. It was, which is great for the Pacers, obviously, but that ties up some of their future spending that eats into their distance between their roster spending and the luxury tax. And with Myles Turner and Isaiah Jackson, as well as McConnell's free agencies hanging out there for next year, I just don't think they can commit to extra money right now, even though TJ McConnell is good and you pay good players. And any extension at his current salary would be a tradable contract, right? Teams already, like the Phoenix Suns last year, according to a bunch of reports, are interested in McConnell. And he's still going to be one of the best backups. Even if he has not quite the same level of season, he'll be an in-demand player because he's really good. So there's reasons to do it, and they could figure out the problems financially later, but they can do it into the season. And that's why I think that it might not happen this offseason, is because they can assess on December 1st and then February 1st. And after the trade deadline, right, if they've made moves or not, hey, should we do this? And so that's why I think if this happens, it would be a late February, early March kind of deal if it happens before free agency. But at that point, if you're McConnell, just wait till the summer. So my guess is no, even though there are reasons to do it, especially if McConnell wants to stay. That is often the most common reason to ignite the discussions and make it happen. Like Nembhard's case, there was restricted free agency. It felt like there was going to be a long-term partnership. That's less clear with McConnell, even though he's clearly good. Question 2, do you think James Wiseman will be in the rotation? No, I do not. I don't think it's going to be tough for him to get on the floor at all, right? Because this is why, if you listen to the podcast I did with Jake Query last week, we graded every move of the summer. And that was the move that I gave the lowest grade to. Jake Query was higher on it than me, and he sold it correctly, right? What the Pacers will and should say about it is, we have gotten these guys in who have not succeeded elsewhere, brought them into our program, and made them better, right? They are allowed to say that because they've done it, and they're allowed to keep betting on themselves to do it, and that's why they can sign Wiseman. They can say, hey, we can turn this guy into a serviceable player, right? But to me, I'm talking too long before answering the question. To me, they should have signed a proven contributor at every available spot because they're trying to win now, right? That is all of their goals of success this season are winning, right? There are obviously developing is important still within that, but winning is the goal for the Pacers. So I thought they would go the route of a third center who's like a vet, who's been around the block. They went with Wiseman, and maybe they'll be right. Maybe they'll develop him and he'll be awesome and it'll make sense. But as of right now, I bring up all that context to say, I don't think he'll play. I don't think he'll play. He was not very good last year for Detroit. He was out of their rotation early in the season behind some other guys who have since been moved or not playing very much for the Pistons, and their rotation was weird. Monty Williams was making some strange choices, but that was not one that people were up in arms about who covered the Pistons, right? So that he's got to get better defensively. He's got to get better with some range. He's got to pass because he's huge and he's fast. Like, that is so critical. But right now, he's definitely the third center behind Isaiah Jackson and Myles Turner. I don't think people understand, like, with Isaiah Jackson becoming a above average backup at the 5, like, the gap between him and Wiseman is somewhat sizable. And then even after that, it's like they could play top if there's a game where Isaiah Jackson's hurt and they're trying to win, like, they could play top at the 5, like, in the playoffs, or Siakam at the 5 for some spurts. So I don't know how much Wiseman will be in the rotation. Maybe in those games where they're missing one of Jackson or Turner, he could play 10 to 15 minutes, but the string should be pretty short for a Pacers team trying to win games. You can't afford to have non-quality minutes. And so it'll be on Wiseman to prove that. He got some guaranteed money, but now he's got to prove that he can do all that sort of stuff. And question 3 from Indiana Sports Talk was, do you think Walker has potential to be in the starting lineup this season if there's no injuries? No, not this season. At some point, heck yeah. I mean, that body type and size and strength, forget the skills just for a second. Like, there is always a path for a player like that if they develop skills to play and start and be very important. He is bulky, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, and he's quick, and he reads the game very well. Like, that archetype of player is why I was high on Tyrus Walker in the draft and why I thought he was the pick at 7, and they picked him anyway. And he's probably not going to be in the rotation this year to start the season. Injuries could get him in, but starting, no, I don't think so this season. If he's a really this level of shooter that he showed in Summer League and last season, then maybe at some point, if he can up the defensive physicality and ability, then yes, that would totally do it. That's the thing they would need from him to actually have him be a starter. This season specifically, though, for Tyrus Walker, no, I don't think he'll start very much unless there's a ton of injuries. But if he does start, that means one of two things has happened for the Pacers here. Either things are going awesome because Tyrus Walker is amazing and is starting, or things are going terrible and they're so banged up that they need to start Tyrus Walker. So I think he'll play more. I've already made my stance on that clear in terms of why. I think he'll probably play somewhere between 50 and 60 games this year as opposed to 33 from last year. But I do not think he'll start unless there's a ton of issues injury-wise on the perimeter. Last question we'll get to this segment comes from Chase Sasson. I might be saying that wrong. It's Sasin. Chase_Sasson says, who do you think is a better fit next to Tyrese Haliburton, Andrew Nembhard, or Bennedict Mathurin? Well, they've made the decision they've made because right now, I think the answer is unquestionably Andrew Nembhard. And that's because he, right now, is a better shooter and defender, straight up, right? Mathurin is a much better scorer, gets into the lane, draws fouls, right? That matters. He gets the rim whenever he wants. But that's not the goal of the fit next to Haliburton, because Tyrese Haliburton's going to have the ball. And so last year, Mathurin upped his three-point percentage in a huge way. Got to 37.4%. Actually shot better from 3 last season than Andrew Nembhard did. But Nembhard started terribly from 3 during those stretches. He was hurt, if you will remember, early in the year. And then again, he got hurt in the in-season tournament. But I believe once he got healthy after that, I forget when he officially returned, but from that point to the end of the season, he was like a 40% three-point shooter. I'm trying to find the exact date. Yeah. Nope, that's not right either. Yes, there it is. December 21st to the end of the season, Andrew Nembhard shot 39% from 3 on a very significant sample size. So I think right now, Nembhard's a better shooter and defender than Mathurin, and that alone makes him a better fit with Tyrese Haliburton. Just full stop right there. Now, forever, I don't know. Like, if Mathurin can develop some off-ball wiggle room ability to get free and then make plays from there, that's awesome next to Tyrese Haliburton. If his on-ball defense becomes better, that's awesome. Right now, though, Nembhard, his passing too is really valuable in that starting 5 as their second best passer in that group by far. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just called Nembhard like the best passer at a period. I think it's Nembhard by a pretty sizable gap in this question. And that's why I think Mathurin off the bench makes sense. I don't know if Ben Mathurin feels that way. I haven't asked him. And I don't even know how, what he's thinking heading into his 3rd season. But I think it's the best case for Mathurin to develop and get reps and chances would be with the second unit, because in a Nembhard, Haliburton, Siakam lineup, he could actually get better chances with the bench. Last year, Andrew Nembhard, 4.1 assists per game, but 5.7 assists per 100 possessions when he shared the floor with Haliburton, 11.7 without him, right? Clearly, he's a good passer who gets that bump when Haliburton's off the floor, but he can still do it in those situations where they aren't together. So I'm pretty high on Andrew Nembhard, as everybody knows, and I think he's a better fit with Haliburton, which is why he started and they made those choices down the stretch of last season. Let's go to segment 2 now. 2 more at a time. Thanks for the questions here. We got more coming up on young players and development and long-term trades and all sorts of fun stuff. Before we talk about that, though, we have got to talk about Gametime, an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices of the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. They've got killer last-minute deals. They have on prices. They have a panoramic view from your seat, and it's spot on. And their lowest price guarantee. Get the guesswork out of buying tickets. You should know what you're getting. You should know what you're going to see when you get there. You should know how much it costs. So they have all-in pricing. There's no hidden fees at the end. You should know that you're getting the best deal. Guess what? They have that with their lowest price guarantee. They have zone deals and flash deals and priority last-minute deals. And they have ticket coverage if things go wrong, plus concerts and comedy. Whatever you could go to, Gametime is the best way to go. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets and MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase on Gametime. Download the app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We are back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day for your second listen, Locked On NBA, because I was there again. Third time in the last 4 Locked On NBA episodes. I've been filling in for a host who's busier doing stuff with their summer in August. It's been fun. Lots of Larry Markkinen, lots of Team USA, lots of Jared Allen extension. Today's the day for Larry Markkinen, or a big day for him. Next question comes from C Falcon 31, CF with a, I think that's Australia, maybe New Zealand emoji in their handle. I need to zoom in to tell. Maybe it's New Zealand. Doesn't matter. He says, who is more likely to survive long-term, Mathurin or Walker? I feel like Nembhard's pretty locked in for the next few years. Agreed on Nembhard being locked in. 1, because of the extension, but 2, because of the stuff we just talked about. He fits very well with the Pacers' best players. His skill set is exceedingly valuable. He's just good. But if he's there, that's right of you to ask the next question. What does that mean for Mathurin? Is there ever going to be room for Tyrus Walker? Because, if they traded Mathurin, they could play Walker right now. Walker's the 11th guy. They move Ben Shepherd to 2. Bam, you have minutes for Tyrus. Like, it's easy to do that. So either or is actually a fascinating question, even though Mathurin's got a safe spot in the rotation and Walker's not playing at all. So there's 2 ways to think about this question. One is who has more trade value, and the other one is who fits the best and or maximizes the Pacers most if they hit their ceiling. If they hit their median outcome, maybe even. That's how I think of this stuff. A lot of people talk about ceiling. That's fine too. So trade value wise, I think right this second, I think Jarrett's probably, I don't know. Mathurin's actually proven it in NBA competition. Walker, just because he's a forward and has more years of team control on his rookie deal, I instinctively thought he might have more trade value, but Mathurin's actually played in lots of NBA games and proven to be at least a rotation player and almost certainly more everywhere. And so maybe he might have more trade value. But either way, if you're the Pacers, you're not in a mode where you can take these guys forever to develop anymore, right? And so survival could be, well, if we need to move a young guy to get a stud in the door, which one has more trade value or which one could we use to do that? That could be the answer to the question. And so my gut just said Tyrus Walker. And then as I thought through it, I actually bet Mathurin probably right now has more trade value, but that is just because he's played more. Like if Tyrus could play, maybe that would change. But if Tyrus could play, maybe that would not change at all. In fact, he could go the opposite direction. If he doesn't play well, it could be even more in Mathurin's favor. And that's why I think Mathurin is the answer for the higher trade value part, is because he's played and done well when playing, right? It hasn't been a question mark of him doing well or poorly. On the flip side, if they hit their median outcomes to ceilings, right? If they become what it looks like the shell of their kind of player type is, who's more important to the Pacers? That's kind of a scratch your own itch kind of deal, right? If Mathurin is a 20 to 25 point per game scorer who can shoot and lock up guys on the ball, that's very valuable. But if Tyrus Walker can shoot and can also do that and can pass and he's forward sized, is that actually better? It's hard to say. And so what are the odds to actually hit those ceilings, right? Who has a higher chance of actually hitting that type of player, the guy who's already proven it for 2 seasons and has been given a chance to do so in Mathurin, or the guy who hasn't proven it yet but hasn't had the chances in Walker? There's just a lot of nuance that makes that really hard to say. This is a good question. But if I were guessing, and if I were the Pacers, if I'm running the Pacers, I have Tyrese Haliburton and I have Andrew Nembhard and maybe even TJ McConnell if I end up trading one of these guys on my team. But even if I don't, I have those two guys. I have a ball handler, two of them locked up for 4 years each. I also have Pascal Siakam for the next 4 years. I would value the guy who I think could give me the most defensively at their peak, and I think that would be Jarris, even though right now Mathurin probably the better defender. So I think personally that Jarris has the better chance of, to use the word you used, surviving, air quotes, with the Pacers, even though Mathurin has a lot going for him. In a vacuum, certainly Mathurin would be more valuable, better player, better long-term upside for a lot of teams. For the Pacers specifically, and the roster they already have, maybe that isn't the case. But that one's really tricky, and I think that one's kind of if you surveyed every Pacers fan, I bet Mathurin wins that. Or excuse me, I bet Mathurin wins the survive question by quite a bit. And I understand that. Again, I was really high on Mathurin last summer, and I still kind of am, but not as much. But Walker just the archetype of what he could be, the fact that he's only 1 year into the league, I think he's got a chance to be something for the Pacers. And if Jarris Walker hits, like, that's a max player. You're seeing it, like Mikal Bridges for 5 picks, OG Anunoby gets $200 million. Like, you see it all the time. The next question comes from Dalton Hamilton. What is the move to make the Pacers serious contenders? This is at DHam5667. I think we have to upgrade at the 3. We need a true big wing. I agree that a forward is the answer. Their next big move would have to be at that spot. That is, if you looked at a lot of the teams, and even Rick Carlisle says this, but a lot of the teams succeeding in the playoffs, what thematically they had going for them was skilled size. And the Pacers added some when they got Siakam. It's like Siakam was good, and Toppin was good in the postseason, and Turner was good until he hit a wall in the conference finals. And Isaiah Jackson playing well really changed the Pacers' fortune in that next series, because guys with size who flip in shots or set good screens or play good defense or do whatever are so valuable, because size is important. And Rick Carlisle always talks about that being the evolution of the game as it went from natural positions to centers being tall and dominating in that, the late 2000s, early 2010s, to then skill taking over. And sort of people conflate that with shooting, but really skill with the Warriors, because Draymond could pass and screen and all that stuff. Clay could defend. They were amazing, and they could all really shoot it, but skill was the answer. And so as you progress through the skill thing, the thing that comes from that is, if you're taller than another player and you have the even skills elsewhere or otherwise, the taller player is better, right? So skilled size is where the best players are. That's why Wembanyama looks amazing, and Chet Holmgren and all that. So that's a long-winded answer to say they have size. They have good tall players, right? Myles Turner's good. Pascal Siakam's good. Obi Toppin's talented. But their 3 spot, if it's going to be Nesmith Shepherd this season, those are fine players, both young, developing talents. It's not like they're not big. They're fine wings, but they're smaller for wings. So they need size, especially if they're getting a star. And so, the Celtics have countless wing-sized, skilled players. The Mavs, trading for P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford, got them some skilled size on the team. Minnesota's huge, right? Denver has a lot of talented guys who are pretty big. I'm just thinking of the teams who have done well either this past season or in recent seasons. And so it would be at the 3 or the 4. What specifically is that move? That's what's harder to say, because it depends who's available, right? Can they be super picky? For example, if Herb Jones is available, Pacers should snap that up as fast as possible. And that's not the big move this tweet, I would think, is referring to, even though it might be. But that type of thing would be a huge move for them. But so what a Bam? But Bam's not available. Who is that player? Who is this large person who can be a force in the front court that's going to become available, that can defend and really plug some holes? I don't know. But that's what the decision is. And so what's the move and when is it? That's the question to ask. And the Pacers need to answer, because it could be young guys for that player type of trade. It could be some established guys and some young guys for that player kind of trade. Could it be an only draft picks trade? That's very unlikely until after this season, when they could trade many more picks after the 2025 draft is done. So the timing would matter for that. Who's available would matter for that. But to me, the move that makes the Pacers serious contenders is skilled size that can defend at the 3 and or the 4. Because if they could play at the 4 also, They could start next to Siakam and then sub him out, or they could play at the 4-5 together. That pairing would really matter. And we've seen Siakam with Kawhi and OG form this like, oh my gosh, level formidable front court. So what is that player? Who is that? What does the deal look like? That depends on who's available. But I think that's the big question for the Pacers is, yes, they clearly need some more skilled size on the team. How do they get it, and when can they get it? And who's even giving that up, right? That's the thing that is so hard to figure out, is those players don't often become available. Like Markkanen and Brandon Ingram still being available is a big deal. Brandon Ingram, probably not a good fit financially or on the floor for the Pacers. Markkanen would be. Are they willing to trade for him now at $18 million? Would you pay him a lot more next year? Should they be? That's the question you have to ask. So to me, like the OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges dreams are probably dead. They're on the same team now. But those types of players would be the pie in the sky kind of dreams, as would any sort of really strong defending star level 6'8" player. That would be the next move for the Pacers to me. Two more here to close out the August mailbag. Hope you guys will stick with us because we've got to talk more about if the Pacers were in the West and Pascal Siakam's tradability. What? You'll see as we close out today's Locked On Pacers. Before we talk about that stuff, though, we're going to talk about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single weekday. Your second listen's got to be Locked On Jazz. For the latest on Markkanen, why this date is important. I think it's actually kind of being a little overstated, and I talked about that in NBA, but why it matters so much, specifically August 6th. Locked On Warriors, they're interested in Markkanen, has been well documented. Also Locked On Cavs, who are dealing with Isaac Okoro and are less than $12 million from the tax with 12 players. I think they're a very interesting team, the Cavs. I think they have a very interesting next 6 months, and I don't think it's being talked about enough. Let's talk about the Pacers to close out this podcast, because they are, of course, what this podcast is all about. And I am endlessly fascinated by this first question about where the Pacers would sit in the West, which comes from Xander Martin at Quinn the Cats. If the Pacers were in the West, do you think they made the playoffs? And what seed would they be? And if they wouldn't, obviously explain. So I think that it'd be tight, man. The West is tough. The Kings barely snuck in last year. And these teams are crazy good. So the Thunder, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, the Mavs, those are better than the Pacers for sure, regular season teams. And then you have this tier of like the maybes, as I'll call them, of Phoenix, who won 49 games last year and probably should be about as good. Memphis, who should be good again. And, New Orleans 149, the Lakers 147, they still have LeBron. There's a lot of good teams. Are the Pacers on those teams level? The Pacers won 47 last year. And here's what people will say. I want people to call people out who say this. People will say, well, the Pacers won 47 last year, and they're young, and their young players will be better, so they should be better. So they should win more than 47. And I would say, well, yeah, that logic is kind of right. But other teams also got better, right? So you can't just do that. You can't just compare a team to last year. You have to look at the rest of the league. And something very interesting about the NBA right now is this year might change things because the next two drafts are really good. But for the last couple of years, teams have been trying to get better and win. A lot of teams. That's why good teams have missed the playoffs the last couple of seasons, like Golden State and Sacramento in the West, for example, right? So that's two West teams. Could the Pacers rise above that level? They won 47 last year. The Kings and Warriors won 46. I think the Pacers are probably better than the Kings, although it's pretty close, and they got DeRozan now. So the Kings might be better than the Pacers. And then there's this Lakers, Pelicans, Suns, Clippers, Rockets, lots of teams that could be good. It would be tough to say. I think the Pacers would be among the top 10. The bottom three would be set. San Antonio, unfortunately, I don't think can quite make the leap, although they'll be pretty good. And then Portland and Utah. But everyone else is good and trying. But I think the Pacers could get above the Rockets for sure. and then they could get above the Kings, possibly. Pelicans don't have a starting center, so I think they're in the top 10 of the West. Could they get to the top 8? It'd be close. It'd be tight, and then they'd have to battle through the plan. Being in the East is pretty nice. But, it's going to be fascinating to see how this league trend continues, where everyone's trying to win at once, except for a very select few teams, because between lots of protected picks and between two very talented drafts, I think there could be some sellers coming these next 2 years. And if that happens, where can the Pacers squeak their way into the West? In that picture would be a good question. And what does it mean for the league when that balance finally shifts back through the pendulum? Because there's probably 8 plus, 12 teams in the West, probably 20 teams in the league that will be happy when a lot of the league becomes sellers. So who knows what that shakes out to be. But as that stands right now, and as you look at the direction of the teams in the West, it'd be tough to see the Pacers above maybe 8th. Somewhere between 8 and 10, and then have to be battling through the plan. Last question today, and I can't believe it. It's a YouTube commenter for the first time. It's from Christopher R. McLean. There's no more. This is the last mailbag. So if you ask one tomorrow, I can't answer it. But good job sneaking one in here. He said, since it's a Q&A, I've got one. How tradable is Pascal's new max deal? Not the likelihood he gets traded, just the difficulty of player with his contract could be moved. I think right now it's definitely tradable to me. I mean, guys who are top 40, 35 to 40 player in the NBA, they make about the max, right? Like that's a tradable deal. Desmond Bane got the max. Like that's not to crap on Desmond Bane. He's really good and he's young and he'll get better. But it's just that's how it goes. That's what these players cost, and if they're still good, they have positive value. The freaking Blazers are paying Jeremy Grant $30+ million a year. The reporting is they're asking for 2 firsts for him, right? Like if you're good, your salary is not like that much of a for lack of a better term deterrent for trades. If he stops being good, that's when this gets harder. So to answer the specific question, how tradable is his max deal? It has positive value right now for sure. If the Pacers wanted to trade Pascal Siakam right now for some reason, yes, there'd be bidders. There were bidders last year, and he made $37 million. He only making $5 million more this season than he did last year, and he got traded for 3 firsts last year. And now there's more long-term money in the back, so a team would not be trading for him as a rental, which was in the Pacers' favor, but a big hurdle for teams last season. Right? It's only $5 million more than that. So put that into it. Now, the obvious flip side of that is, by the end of this, he'll be 34, right? Does he have decline in these next 2 years? I've talked about this and said everybody who just default assumes that, I think is wrong. I mean, we've seen guys, especially in this new era of better medicine, get a big contract at 30 and then again at 34. We've also seen guys hit a big contract at 30 and then age out of it, and it looks bad. There's a lot less bad contracts now. Teams have gotten better at this stuff, right? Beals is bad, but that's probably the only one of the top 15 contracts in the NBA that are truly awful. Cats might get there, although he's still pretty good. Kawhi's maybe because of injury, not because of talent. But, of the top 18 deals in the league, there's only one bad one. And then there's Levine's, who is probably neutral value, and that's because of injuries. And that's kind of it of the max salary players. Ben Simmons will be off the books next year, and then there's just only 2. There are 2 max salary players that are truly bad deals. Teams are better at this now. Modern medicine means that if you don't get injured, it's hard to be a really bad contract. So I think it's tradable because it's barely more than he made last year right now. But that's contingent on him still playing well, right? The second he shows slippage and he's not as good, that is when this becomes an because he does play a lot. He plays well. If he's playing a lot and playing okay, then yeah, he'll be overpaid. And that's a very hard contract to do. But right now, I think it's a positive value contract that they could get value for at some point if they wanted to. I don't know why they don't want to. He's very good. He's their second best player. But right now, pretty tradable. And I'd be guessing to guess how he'll age. I've learned that everybody who covers a team says, "Oh, this guy will age just fine." His game will age just fine, and not everybody's game can age just fine. Because in my head, if you're Pascal Siakam, you have a really gentle shot. He does have this speedy spin move that could fade away, but he's a really gentle jump shot. He's good with the angles, right? He's tall, should age pretty good, And Siakam will be set up by Tyrese Haliburton, but I can't just throw that out without seeing it. But if he ages as most stars in their, early 30s do, I think this will be a tradable positive value deal for at least 2 years and probably a little more than that. Maybe the back end gets scary, but I think it's an overblown thought, even though it could possibly, of course, be a reality. But again, last year he made $37 million on an expiring deal and was 3, albeit not very good, 3 first-round pick value. Now he's making 42 with actual guaranteed money on the back that makes him not a rental. definitely has positive trade value right now. What that looks like in a year, 2 years, that will be determined on the floor. Thank you all for the questions. Makes it good to talk about stuff that I will certainly be referring to as the month goes on. Tomorrow, talking more Olympics. Tuesday, Haliburton and Nembhard play in the quarterfinals. We'll see how they do. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And then we'll have guests Thursday, Friday. Who and in what order? We'll see. Lots of stuff up in the air for me from a planning perspective, but I can't. You'll see. So looking forward to all that. Lots of good stuff coming here as usual on Locked On Pacers. Can't wait. Can't wait to do some player interviews and break down some biggest seasons in Pacers history. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show. You can find me on Twitter at Tony R. East and the show at Locked On Pacers, or comment down below on YouTube if you need to reach me for any reason. Hope you all enjoyed today's show. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you very soon.